The boys make the noise. Coming to you live from a galaxy not so far, far away. Welcome to Fandom Spotlight presents the Book of Boba Fett, episode Duh. I am your Jedi Master of Ceremonies, as you can see. Well, I don't know if you can see my Zoom name, but if you can see it, Mace Windude, aka Obi-Wan Kenobi, Mr. Matthew Porter, here to, holding it down. Just here with a couple of my favorite nerf herders, ready to dive deeper than the Sarlacc pit and get some Boba stuff. But before we do that, I just want to introduce my Jedi Council. We have our southern neighbor with the purple lightsaber, Mr. Joseph Davis. Talk to the people, Joe.
We're gonna spill the boba tea today. So
All these jokes that are just there. They're just like, take me, take me,
so
take
easy.
me. So easy. And then my good friend, wiser than Darth Plagueis the Wise, Mr. Mike Campbell. Talk to the people, Mikey.
It's not blue milk, but it'll get me through this.
Actually, so we are on episode 2, 1 week away from being halfway through this series, believe it or not. And we are, every time I think I kind of have a handle on where this show's gonna go, they kind of keep MacGuffin me, which I'm not mad at. I kind of like the unexpected. But before we just kind of go into it, we'll just kind of go through general thoughts of episode 2. Mikey, how'd you feel about this episode overall?
A lot more flashbacks than I was expecting. And I think last week I had said something along the lines of, we'll probably get that taken care of. Now I'm not so sure. But
Exactly.
the action that came with it was certainly welcome. And I got to say, I'm just itching for the current timeline to keep progressing because it just feels like they're building to something huge.
Very excited. Joe, how'd you feel about the episode overall?
Same here. I'm kind of glad at least the flashbacks weren't staggered this time around. That it was like we have present day and then the rest of the episode is flashback. So I'm digging at least that much. It feels like they do want to kind of force the whole "this is how we got here" done, and then now we're ready to go. So,
Yeah,
but overall, loved it. More
absolutely.
Matt Berry, he came back. So
I was gonna say, look, we called it. We said you need a protocol droid, might
yeah,
as well just have Jackie Daytona stay on payroll. But yeah, I agree with both of you guys. I was surprised at the flashback because I did think when we talked about it last week that it was kind of going to be like sparingly through each episode, but it seems to be like most of this episode, if not half the episode, was in flashback, and we covered a lot of ground. And we will touch on that later on. But overall episode length, Disney Plus has had a bad habit of shafting us. They'll be like, hey, 50 minutes, 15 of its credits. But we only got 4 minutes of credits this time in a 48-minute episode. So we
yeah.
actually we went the distance. I was feeling pretty good about that. So I was happy with everything that I got. But we opened the episode with Finnick getting her steps in. Last we saw her, she was chasing down the assassin, and surprise, surprise, she caught him, and she walked them, dog walked them all the way back to Boba's palace, and we get an interrogation where Mike or Joe, you can let me know. We are introduced to whom he works for, and it is brought to our attention that he is an assassin for the Night Wind. I think that
The
was
Night
what it
Wind.
was. Do
The
they exist
Nightwind
in
Brotherhood or
other?
something like that.
Do they exist in other lore? Or is this another like new to the Star Wars ethos?
Honestly, first time hearing of them.
Yeah,
But
like it wouldn't surprise me if they exist somewhere, like if it's a Legends reference or something like that. But like they're not someone that's even like remotely there's some characters they introduce later on with a certain choo choo situation that are like they show up multiple times in other Star Wars stuff, but a casual fan would not recognize them. I kind of feel like the Night Wind Brotherhood or whatever they're called are definitely one of those like you got to like spend 2 hours on the wiki to find like where they're mentioned.
and to piggyback off that, Joe, Fennec doesn't seem too impressed with the Night Wind, so I
He
guess we
said
shouldn't
they're
either.
paying for the
I,
name.
I'm starting to feel like her default mood is not too impressed with this shit. Um, not
She's
like
a
that's
professional contrarian.
not genuine. That's not genuinely how she feels, but she's just such a boss. Like she knows that's what you got to do to be the master assassin position she's in. Death Star
Yeah.
starts floating over Tatooine. She's like, whatever. I've seen a bigger ship.
Right, I've seen bigger. That ain't no Death Star 2.
Can we give kudos to the costume department for like incorporating masks into the costume for this guy though? I don't think we brought it up last week, but it was definitely something
Oh shit, I didn't really
I
realize
kind of
that.
picked
Yeah.
up on it this week. I was like, they're following whatever the CDC's guidelines were back then.
Culturally relevant on Tatooine.
Yeah.
And there's not a lot of scenes where you see them close together and they're not wearing something that has a face covering. Like Boba and Fennec are the only ones that you see in super close proximity. And considering we know how a lot of these Disney shows have been shot, or at least the Star Wars shows so far have been shot, there's a really good chance that some of those actors were never in the same room together.
It's definitely possible. Also, I'm sure that most of it was shot in the volume. I still can't believe that they've mastered Tatooine inside the volume. Like I can't tell that they're not outside.
As much time as we've spent there, I would hope that they figured out like, all right, we got this on lock. So we get a bit of an interrogation from the Assassin of the Order of the Night Wind, and we threaten to drop him. I was kind of hoping, and Mike, I know as a fellow Bad Batch a fan, that we were going to see Moochie.
Moochie! I think Moochie's a little too old at this point. Because I think Patissa was the Rancor that died in Return of the Jedi, which I'm assuming is like a offspring of Moochie. But that bit is just so good. The fact that like the audience is obviously in on it. If you're a big Star Wars fan, you know what happened. You know that there's likely nothing in there, and they're just able to scare tactic him into revealing that it was the mayor, as far as we know, that hired him.
That was actually my lead up to the next question. So the assassin kind of says like, "Oh, it was the mayor," and whatnot, what have you. Do we believe that it was the mayor?
Yes and no.
Elaborate, good sir.
Because I think it probably was the mayor, but like not of his own volition. Like I'm pretty sure he's being told to do something by someone. If not the Hutt twins, then someone else.
Love it. Mikey, how you feel?
Honestly, the same. I don't like him though. I think that there's a shady element to it where he doesn't have a problem attempting to take Boba out, but he's not gonna put himself front and center.
I think he was completely honest when he starts talking to Boba about it. He's like, look, I'm here at your behest. Like, why would I go after you? And he would if he thought he could get away with it, because then he's got more power again. So
absolutely. And again, I say this every week, but you guys are always on my point right before I'm about to get there, and I love it every time. But Mike, you kind of threw a oop to something that I did want to bring up when you talked about the masks. I'm loving, and I don't know if it's because it's a show and they just don't want to like spend the money on CGI, but I'm loving like the return of practical effects to Star Wars. Like that's what we love from the original trilogy. They went super CGI with the new trilogy to the point it was just like simple characters that we know they've made costumes for before in the past, or like full CGI. But it's just like just seeing like live costumes just across the board. And if there was CGI, you couldn't really tell outside of the stuff that was obvious CGI, like had to be. But like a lot of the characters, if there was like a mix of CGI with like mix of practical effects, they blended them quite well. And I am here for it.
It seems like it's the Jurassic Park effect where they have primarily practical effects and touch up and clean up and make it a much more viable function with CGI.
The biggest thing for me on that point is just that everything feels familiar, but it's different. Whereas with the sequel trilogy, I feel like they really started to push it, and the costume designers were like, let's make a bunch of really new aliens. And while that's great, and I enjoy like expanding, the mythos behind everything and having more races, it's good to see familiar species that are existing. Like the practical Trandoshan costumes were amazing. Just seeing them like blink and knowing that probably isn't CGI kind of made like it gave me chills seeing how good the special effects from the costume aspect have gone. But yeah, I think blending the two has gotten to a point where we're getting the best of Star Wars in live action, and it's coming in a TV show, which I think is also pretty crazy.
Absolutely. I can't not see Trandoshans and think of the Koopa clan from the Super Mario Brothers movie.
Like the Goomba heads and stuff.
Yeah, the Goomba heads, like every time. I'm like, Goomba. every single time.
There is definitely like a clear connection between them, the Koopas, and then the dinosaurs from the sitcom Dinosaurs, right?
Oh,
I literally watch that on Disney Plus. I go to sleep to that like every night. I love that show. But we touched on them a little bit, and we do finally get introduced to the mayor. And I kind of want to get your guys' opinion on the mayor because to harken back to a Hawkeye reference, I feel like they're Jack Ducaning the mayor because episode one, he did kind of seem like he, if not the big bad, like a big bad. And I kind of got the vibes, like just the whole interaction, like you were saying, Joe, like, oh, I'm here to work for you. Obviously, he's slimy. Double entendre, don't ask me how. So it's like, how much do we really believe? But it does seem like they declawed him a bit. Like he didn't seem as threatening to like obviously the people that come up next that we're gonna like kind of get to. But it seems like they kind of took away some of the mayor's who I gotta worry about. He's like an immediate threat. What do you guys feel about the mayor, Mike? How you feeling?
hey, I just want to throw out there, I don't
Oh yeah,
like
go
the Thorians. I don't like them at all. Their design creeps me out.
I
And
love them.
watching one talk with an obvious translator sitting on the side of its side mouth.
I
Just,
thought that shit was so cool, and it was like
it is cool. It's a
pulsating.
really awesome effect. It also bothers me. Bothers me to no end.
I think it's so funny that you hate them and I love them. But
It's a situation where I respect it. It's really good effects and it's really neat design. I just get uncomfortable.
You know what? The Aqualesh do that for me, so I totally get where you're coming from. But I think I just love it because the Tartakovsky Clone Wars series has a Jedi Thorian who does this amazing Force scream,
Sure.
and I think that's the only reason why I like them so much. But it was cool to see the translator harkens back to some of the animated material. We see the bartender in the first season of Rebels is an Thorian who has the same type of translator. I think we see one in Bad Batch as well. So it's just awesome to see the stuff kind of like cross back and forth between the two.
Yep.
What is it with the crime lords or people in power in Star Wars who are not intimidating at all, yet they control this like mass group of people? Like Jabba's not going to win the fight, right? It's
Well,
just, I mean,
you just got stick and move with Java.
Yeah, like he doesn't. Jabba himself isn't intimidating, but like I guess like the power. How do the Hutts amass such a following? What is the mayor doing that makes him the person that people look to, right?
First off, the Hutts were a warrior species long before they were intergalactic crime syndicate species.
They let themselves go.
They really did. Like they basically conquered a bunch of planets through galactic imperialism and then decided we're going to run it like a business now. And we're very successful both ways.
Gluttony.
Yeah.
Gluttony.
Hubris, the downfall of us all.
I don't have to go get my own stuff.
No more fights. Oh, great. But Mike, I don't know if we got to it. So where are you feeling like in terms of threat level for the mayor now, in terms of like the overarching of the show, since we got like 4 more episodes left?
If we didn't have the twins coming around the corner in like a couple minutes, I would put him at like maybe a 5, but the Hutts being there really kind of push it down to a 3 for me.
Joe, you got that look on your face.
I'm at like a 7, if only because like he's not the kind of threat that I think he's actually going to send assassins. Like if he sent those assassins himself, it was to like get Boba to go to his office. But regardless, I say a 7, if only because he's smart and he's enterprising and he's basically playing chess. And Boba's playing checkers. Like, I don't want to insult Boba Fett. He is a dangerous, dangerous man, but a planner he is not. And the mayor seems much more like, I can't win in the straight up fight, but if I can get all the people I hate to kill each other, that's even better.
I really appreciate your point. The only reason I'm being so reserved is because I'm starting to wonder what other crime syndicates are going to get pulled in here.
Oh, definitely.
We're gonna get there too.
And that is why I'm like, are we gauging it on the show or like overall? And if other syndicates get involved, that's why I'm rating him so low. But Joe, you could have like that inside track right there that we end up seeing by the end of the series. The mayor was a lot bigger of a threat than we had, or at least that most people anticipated.
He makes me think of an episode of Bob's Burgers where
It's my
where
favorite
Louise has to
show.
run for student council or whatever for class president because
Oh,
she's
and
afraid of
Millie
her enemy
turns
Millie.
everyone against each other.
Yes. Um, and
Such
then
a
you
great
find out it's
episode.
Henry Haber at the end of it who's been pulling all
Hmm.
the strings. Well, I think the mayor is closer to a Henry Haber type where he's actually has no chance. His only actual chance is to have literally every other threat on Tatooine kill each other. And I think that's what he's trying to do. Um, he's smart and that's the only benefit he's got. And then everything else, like no. It's
If
just
that's how it plays out, I'm here for it. Honestly, that
Yeah.
sounds awesome.
No, I'm gonna definitely when we get to like predictions for what's gonna happen, I'll definitely touch on it more. We got some action in the chat. Devin Zane says hello everyone. What's going on, Dev? Thank you for
Hello,
joining us
Devin.
this evening. But kind of to go off of Joe's point, just in terms of like Boba Fett not being like a planner, he's kind of just been rolling around, killer for hire. The mayor does kind of reference that. He's like, yo, running a crime family is a lot different than bounty hunting. He's like, I'm gonna throw you this bone. He was just like, hey, go holler at Shorty at the bar. She got something to tell you. She got something to tell you. And then we've talked about it a bunch of times already to lead up to it. We are introduced to the twins, the cousin Fets. I do not remember their names at the moment. If you know them, shout them. But they're affectionately known as the twins. And because, like I said, because I don't know the names, I'm gonna just keep calling them the twins.
I
And
Wikipedia'd
we
it. No
yeah,
names. You're good.
no names.
It's
Oh,
the
perfect.
twins.
Even better. So we are informed that the twins they're staking their claim to their cousin Jabba's basically his empire. They're like, yo, that's our cousin. We next up. And Bo was just like, nah, I kind of went about this the way that you should have. You should have came down here, knocked off Bib Fortuna, took over, and did the thing. But
it's like
y'all didn't.
you've had like 5 years to do this, man.
Facts. I was on my ayahuasca spiritual journey. Y'all could have came and
Oh,
y'all could have came and swooped this up this whole time, but you didn't. So we are introduced to a character that I know. As soon as I saw it, I said, "Oh, I know Mike is jumping out of his skin right now." We are introduced to the one, the only Mike. Who was here? Who was here?
Black Chrysanthemum.
Black Chrysanthemum or
The most
Chrysanthemum, politically correct now. We woke Chrysanthemum.
Chrysanthemum. The most dangerous Wookiee that I've ever like read about. I think and dude, just I think Chewbacca has his moments of intimidation, but he's got a cuddly looking face.
he's got a good heart.
Chrysanthemum, yeah, Chrysanthemum. That guy's got killer vibes.
Yeah. And we'll kind of dive into it a little bit, but I love the fact that they're like, again, Mike, you had said it, they're acknowledging past things that aren't like just in the movie. Like it's like a wink and a nod if you know, you know. Because if you if you were a reader of any of the comic book series or the Darth Vader comics, we know Black Chrysanthemum did work with Boba. They kind of had they both worked for Darth Vader, if my memory serves me correctly on some things. They got into some shit together. And Boba kind of even took a jab at him. He's like, yo, I'm not a sleeping guard. Like you're not just gonna sneak up on me. Like it's gonna take a little bit more. And another cool thing, he also has a history with another major character that has a show coming up, which is Obi-Wan Kenobi. So they keep mentioning major cameos that are supposed to pop up in this show. And we know that we got like 2 to 3 Star Wars shows currently being made or like in pre-production and everything. What do you guys think of his inclusion as now being an official canonical character? Joe, you can start us off.
First off, the first thing I thought when I saw him walk around the corner, I'm like, oh, the furry community is just sitting here going like, daddy.
Facts.
He has that intimidating energy that just makes you quake, regardless of where you are in attraction to furry stuff or whatever. You're just like, that is
He's
dangerous.
But no, 1000%.
But even further, it's the idea that I don't know, man. This is the first Wookiee we've seen that's not attached to Kashyyyk in any live action Star Wars anything, and we're really kind of used to them all being like Chewie, like you push them too far and they berserker rage, but otherwise they're just kind of like hippies. And there's no hippie here. He's like the same generation, but then in the 80s he's like Reaganomics. So now he's got a gun. And
and brass knuckles
and spiked shoulders and just terrifying. But like, it's one of the first times I'm like, those huts themselves are not dangerous. It's the fact that they brought him that makes them dangerous. Because that guy is gonna kill for money.
Yeah, I'm super excited. Mike, how you feeling about his introduction into the world
This to
officially now?
me was a bigger drop than Cobb Vanth. I just think that he has kind of like that staying power where obviously Timothy Olyphant like killed it in Mandalorian season 2. And I think he made me like the character a lot more. But this is something that has staying power, and the character design is so good. The intimidation factor. Everyone who loves Star Wars kind of loves the villains at the same time. Chrysanthemum definitely feels like he's one of those characters that could go down as having the same kind of impact that Maul does from just like a visual like perspective. Like people are going to really gravitate towards him, and if they give him his flowers in this, like then
that's the thing too. Like in Star Wars, we have like an abundance, like an overabundance almost of snarky human characters. We don't have a lot of really just badass aliens. Like we have some, don't get me wrong, we have Maul, but even he's kind of human like. And even less, we have Wookiee characters. So having this character show up and be a badass Wookiee bounty hunter is just terrifying.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm super excited. And another thing we had talked about before, like with the Cad Bane dent in Boba's helmet, like he has like the Obi-Wan scar and everything. So it's just like they're they're giving us built-in backstories. And it's a thing that I say about Marvel all the time. Like they keep putting things next to each other that equal a very specific thing. Hopefully they just pull the trigger on it. Like we know what you're foreshadowing. Just give us what we want, please. So the next point that I want to bring up, and it's kind of going back to the mob kind of overarching or maybe underarching mob mentality style type show that this could be. We had reference in pre-production, like the Western feel. So Finnick makes a comment, or no, Boba makes a comment about wanting to kill the cousins, and Finnick's like, hey, you need permission to do that. That's not just something that you could pull off. Who do we think they need permission from to
A
knock off a
higher up,
hut?
a higher up hut, basically.
100% agree.
Yeah.
No crime syndicate outweighs the Huts, even in Jabba's absence, in my opinion.
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure all he's got to do is find the right hut, and they'd be like, yeah, go for it. I'm behind you. Those kids are annoying. Because quite frankly, and I'm just gonna throw this out there, because they may be Jabba's cousins, but they were brother and sister, and they made me really uncomfortable. And they're just giant worms. Like the way they're kind of draped over each other
Yes, it is.
was like just a
Yeah,
little
him
uncomfortable.
using a mouse as a sweat rag,
Yeah.
the funniest shit.
She's got a little fan. She's got a little fan.
Yeah, he's just using a mouse.
Yeah.
And those today's like the mouse bites him. He's like, all right, I'm done. Like, get out of here, bro. Like, but I was kind of sound minded body with you guys too. Like it would have to like a call to another hut, but we had kind of foreshadowed it, and it'll kind of like pay off in credence later on in the episode. Is it possible at all? She is also going to be in an upcoming Disney Plus property. Could this be a time for the return? We haven't seen her since Solo of Kira. Now
I
that
think
Maul's
so.
dead, could she now be the head of Crimson Dawn? And we know that they worked very heavily with the Huts. I don't really remember like who held more power like in that relationship, but could she kind of be like the person that would be like, all right, go ahead.
I I think possibly. I don't think it's necessarily like super likely, but like if they're gonna bring anything back from that movie, that would be the character to bring back because they can't give us Maul. He's dead.
Yeah,
Um, so she would be the next logical step.
Yeah, and
yeah,
Crimson Dawn has definitely seen more of a growth through the comic books lately. So if anyone has that like prowess right now, it's them. Some other syndicates like the Black Sun are just kind of like deeper pulls from the lore, but I could see them using them. I just don't see them rivaling the Huts. So definitely something that we'd have to maybe get a little more backstory as to how they grew to power to even come close to having that kind of presence. Because it's just like the twins showing up thinking they can still take Jabba's land on Tatooine or his territory leads me to believe that they still hold a majority of the power in the Outer Rim.
absolutely. Like between like the mayor kind of being implied that he does work for the twins, but obviously him having his own agenda, and them like referring to like the family. Uh, this show is giving me like Hobbit Battle of Five Army vibes, like that is gonna like kind of culminate in a like
And I'm
different
seeing,
branches of the family fighting for control of Tatooine.
and I'm kind of also seeing like some like Breaking Bad vibes, where it's just these different cartels like butting heads over territory and all sorts of other stuff like that too. There is a character we've neglected to mention in both episodes deeply, and it's, I can't remember her name, but the Twi'lek brothel owner, played by
Oh,
Jennifer
Shorty,
Beals.
Shorty at the bar,
Yeah,
affectionately known as Shorty at the bar.
right, right.
But no, she definitely seems like she's got her hands in some things too.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking maybe she's pulling even more strings than the mayor. And like I said, the mayor himself not being powerful makes sense, but I think he's like trying to play angles to get more power, and I think that's part of it. Like I think she answers to that more than the mayor probably would.
Yeah, Game of Thrones reference. Roz like ran all the shit in King's Landing until she got figured out. But yeah, you control the pleasure. You control most of the men.
Yep.
For real, for
The
real.
lieutenants have the like inside track in a lot of these, just across like different shows, mediums, and stuff like that. They have all the knowledge there. So if there's someone to be pulling strings, it kind of makes sense for her to be that person. Another character we've neglected to mention, and I'm so mad we didn't bring it up last week, but Max Rebo survived the barge blowing up. And I just want to say kudos to Max Rebo.
Max Rebo
Welcome
and the
back.
Jizz Whalers.
Yeah. Who doesn't love the Jizz Whalers?
Welcome back. Welcome back. So we did talk about that they kind of split this episode in half. So we have like the current day timeline, which was explored in the first half of the episode, and then we got more flashback, which when we were kind of giving our predictions, all of us kind of felt across the board that they were gonna kind of slow burn Boba's spiritual journey and how he got from being, cold-blooded mercenary to, more anti-hero. But no, they just gave it to us all in this episode.
Much.
It was like they say, "Hey, we don't got a lot of time here. This is how he got to his spiritual awakening." So we get more flash Baptist tanks, flash Baptists. We taking us back. And I really actually like this. And we got more world building with the Tuscans. And it's just kind of just solidifying how much more of a dick Anakin was in Attack of the Clones. That they're just showing us that they're just people, they're just like us.
Nah,
Little
they're
different.
animals. Slaughtered them like animals, not just the men,
Not just
the
the
women,
men.
and the children.
Anakin.
Everybody.
And Padme's
Everybody.
over there like,
Genocide.
She said, "I know I told you no like 2 minutes ago, but I've changed my mind."
Hold on.
I
Don't
have
wash your
changed
hands.
my
I
mind.
want the blood on them.
Yeah, hey, facts.
dirty.
Super facts. So how are we feeling? Do we think that this like giving humanity to the Tuscans, is that just kind of world building, or do we think that that's going to serve a purpose in this show specifically?
It's both. I think not every species should be like locked into one, like, I guess, stereotype, which Star Wars like had the bad habit of doing, and I like that we're kind of expanding, right?
That's just generally a bad tactic in like fantasy and science fiction writing from the 70s to like now. Almost like you have in the fantasy side, you have dwarves, like they're miners, they're greedy, they live in mountains, they do axes and wear short and wear armor, that kind of stuff.
They're all Danish for some reason.
Yeah, right. And Star Wars is no better. It's like the Mon Calamari, like they get bonuses to finding traps, which is a real thing from one of the Star Wars role-playing games. They have like a bonus to finding traps, and like that is the absolute worst. But
And the Rhodians, like, they can't break out of the like I'm gonna turn on you type vibe, right? So it's we're trying to break these norms within the species, and they're doing it little by little with the Tuscans. And I feel like Boba himself was really humbled by the Sarlacc. I wasn't expecting that turn to happen so quickly, but there's a lot of respect built up there. Do you guys feel like that has happened too quickly, or do you think that Boba just has that like level of honor within him that he knows that he can get something from the Tuscans that he probably couldn't elsewhere in terms of like training or something to add to his repertoire to make him a better bounty hunter?
I think there's a couple of things going on here. Is like, A, we don't know how long this has been.
I was just about to say.
Yeah, I mean, it could be like Boba's been with the Tuscan for like 2 weeks, or this could be like, because like the Jedi and this point has been 5 years, and Boba couldn't have been in that stomach for a year. So, right. But I think also part of it is like this is the first time Boba's done family things since he was a child, and this could be bringing up a lot of deep stuff for him. So.
Yeah, I'm about to say essentially everything Boba knew has been wiped out in one way, shape, or form. Tanwee's gone, Django's gone, Camino gone, essentially. But yeah, so we get kind of life with the Raiders and everything, you know, like what they got going on, like the family dynamic, like Mike was saying, kind of bringing him into the culture, and it is like a respect thing. And Mike, I did feel that way, like, oh, they kind of accepted him quickly. But then like Joe was saying, thinking of this time where we're in the current timeline, this is kind of running alongside Mandalorian when he showed up at the one of the episodes. Well, we didn't know it was him, but when he showed up in one of the episodes in season 1 in the outfit that they give him at the end of this episode. So I do kind of believe it's implied that he kind of was with them for a while. Like he was just kind of rocking, like just kind of just, oh, these are my people. Like I'm here. I'm here for a long time now, especially because like the way that he handled that Gafty stick in season 2, we saw him in this episode. He's like, they gave him the starter stick. So that was hilarious. But we get another introduction of another crime family who has a train. Like, just a train. And it made me think, and I didn't dig too deep because I wanted to save it for it. Have we ever seen a train in Star Wars, like in live action?
Solo, yeah.
Yeah, yep, that was the one. I always forget about the fucking tiger.
Which also dealt with speeder bikes stealing it. So
the swoop chase was on for sure. Yep. But this is Boba's second train heist in canon, actually.
Oh, really? Tell us more.
Because there's a Clone Wars episode where Boba and his crew, which consists of Dengar, Bosk, Asajj Ventress gets recruited, and I forget, there's Hai Sing is a droid that's with him, and there's another character, I forget her name, but they have to they have to be on a train and transport cargo to this like monarch on this planet. And so the whole episode for the most part takes place on this train. So Boba's got some experience there from the Clone Wars. But who doesn't love a good train heist? Me and Joe were actually getting into it a little bit right before the call started, and I just love it. And in Star Wars, it works so well.
Oh yeah, 1000%. Just trains and blasters just work, and speeder bikes. It's just aesthetically, it's just so pleasing.
This whole situation is just 100% a Western because it's the horsemen riding up, jumping from the horses to the train, and it's such a Western.
Has the Pike Syndicate been in anything live action before? Solo again. I've seen that one time, so that's why it's just hasn't stuck with my brain.
I mean, and apparently, because I looked it up, because I'm like, man, I know I've seen them before somewhere. Where have I seen them? They're basically anywhere you see spice, they're involved. That's their thing. Is they do spice mining and selling and harvesting.
That was like a whole season of Clone Wars, like the spice when Ahsoka went off on her own and everything. You know, it's just blatant Dune stealing. It's like, you know what? If we're gonna steal, we're gonna steal. Why hide my hands?
And while we did see a Pike in Solo, this is the first time we've seen their like faces because they commonly wear masks. So it was cool to see that. They like took the mask off. Maybe they were afraid to do it in Solo. I'm not sure, but there were a bunch of them just chilling with their masks off after the heist. So it was cool to see.
But our introduction to them was fucking sick as shit. They just kind of drove through, just shooting. Like it was like, oh hey, look, Tuscans on the horizon. Let's shoot them. Not obstructing the track at all. Not even close enough to really affect our day. Let's just shoot them. And
And
so
you know,
we get
they could have aimed high or super low and just shot the ground or shot the sky, like, hey,
right.
don't get close, don't get. But no, they shot to kill a
It was
lot.
targeting. It was absolute targeting.
They
And
killed the poor bantha.
they did.
True.
They did.
They didn't have to do that.
I was like, more people should have probably got behind that. Like Bob was like, oh, behind, let's get behind the Bantha. I was like, why doesn't everybody get behind the Bantha? But we get a really cool shot, which I'm gonna assume it was on purpose. Because it was too reminiscent not to be on purpose, of Boba carrying the body of the Tuscan, and it was mirrored of Anakin carrying his mom
Mhm.
after rescuing her from the Tuscan, like wrapped up in the sheets and everything to burn the dead. So I thought that was if that was an intentional callback, I thought that was really cool. I would say my one complaint about this episode, and we'll kind of go into it, from the massacre of the Pike Syndicate train ride from hell to when Boba goes to the dive bar to go after the graffiti taggers. The cut makes it seem like he's chasing after the train people. Like it was like a really bad transition.
It's not
And I
even
was just
just the
like,
cut. It's
when
like
did the train
that's
stop?
that. It's not just the cut either. The way he made it sound. Like he's like, I'm gonna
Exactly.
go take out the train. I'll be back in
Yep.
the morning. I'm like, damn, Boba. But no,
Yep.
instead, what we got was stealing horses and teaching them to ride horses.
And not only that, he essentially took his aggression out on the J taggers, like
Oh,
whatever their group is. And that was another thing that I feel like we got Jack Duquesne. Like we saw the little Tuscan was just like, hey, for some reason, randomly stop digging for the water chestnuts and come look at these people who be graffitiing buildings and stealing stuff. And they just showed them, and we see that JL tag. And I know Mike, we had talked about it last week that you had looked up that symbol and that we haven't really found anything to match it. And it kind of seems like Boba wiped out their whole crew at
if
this dive bar.
if not, he set them back and stole their bikes. So
Absolutely. So, do we think that this is the end of that group, or is that action gonna bite him in the ass, and that's now another enemy that's gonna be coming for him, to add to the mounting issues that he has with everybody else?
I kind of think that maybe it'll be that like they'll show up again, but not in the present day, because like there's still potentially more flashback stuff. Like we don't know why Boba's left yet,
Very good
so I
point.
wouldn't be surprised if they marshal against the Tuscans.
There's a part of me that thinks that there might be more of them, but I think that they maybe had just planted the seed super early for this to be where Boba goes. Also, really deep cut by the production crew. This was brought up to me by my landlord, aka my girlfriend's dad. That's Tashi's station that they're at.
Yep.
That bar.
Yeah, and that couple was in like a deleted Star Wars scene. That's
Yeah.
like the
So
not the same actors, obviously.
yeah, but they're supposed to be like Luke's and Big's
Yep.
friend, and something I would have never picked up on because I think I've seen that
At all.
deleted scene like once in my life. But just kind of a cool deep cut. I was surprised that they could have called anything Tashi Station. So for them to kind of like pay homage to the original production design was cool to see. But yeah, I think they may have just planted it a little early. Your criticism on the cut definitely makes sense. It just, I'm wondering, have they planted a lot of other seeds that I'm just not picking up on in these flashbacks, and that we're going
Right.
to see like build out? Because one thing that I think it faked all of us out. I thought that Boba's gaffy stick was going to end up being the main warriors, like that.
Yeah, the she shaman.
Yeah, the Michonne looking Tuscan.
Yes. Exactly.
Yeah.
No, I agree. I agree.
The Tuscan
'Cause it-
equivalent of the Blade Master kind of thing.
Because had I not noticed, like one of the guys had like that tag on his jacket, and had I not, like, because I had to go back and watch it because I thought I missed something. I was like, wait, like, did I like zone out? Because yeah, like Joe was saying, is like the massacre happened, they burned the body. He was like, I'll be back, and then he sees the speeders going by. And I'm like, because I'm like, damn, that train, they savages. They shot him up and parked up like right around the corner, just to get a drink. So yeah, but I had to watch that back, like just to be like, oh, this was just a poor editing choice. Like, I thought I had missed something. But Joe, you had again, you guys always know my points. So we then get a pretty awesome speeder bike training montage with the Tuscans. He's like, this is forward, this is back, and everything. What did you guys think about that scene in general?
it was funny. I really dug the parallel of like Boba had a stick training montage previously, and then we have this montage. So
kind of like a trading of cultures, right? Which is fun to see. I also just love that they're letting Tamora have some fun. I mean, they didn't have to keep the cut of him being like, but they did, and that gif will live rent free in my head for the rest of time. So
no, they are looking for reasons for him to show his amazing teeth. Like any shot they like just show him your pearls, bro. Like, but I thought that was hilarious. But so we get the training montage and everything, and it's leading up for the Wild Wild West of Tatooine, where we're gonna get a train raid for the Pike Syndicate. For whatever reason, the Pike Syndicate was like, "Hey, this route that we just massacred, let's take this same path." Because they're not gonna be mad at all. Everything will be fine. So we rally the troops, and we get like 10 minutes of just awesomeness. Hey, there's not even a question here. I just want to talk about it with you guys. But what was like some of your favorite parts of the whole train heist? Mike, start us off.
The comedic beat where we'll call her Blade Master Tuscan pops her head out after killing the one Pike and pops back down and takes the other two out.
Same one.
I was gonna say that's a big one for me. One thing I definitely noted was so we talked about CGI and practical effects and how like the merging of the two has been really good in this. The droid conductor, I feel like, had to have been a bit of both. Like some of those close-up shots looked like practical effect shots.
Yeah.
And then, but mixing it in, I almost couldn't tell in some of the transitions. It got a little obvious at some points, but something I really appreciated about it. And just that the training, like it really felt warranted when they were successfully making those jumps onto the train, right?
I also really dug that once Boba got in the cockpit, the droid's just like, bye.
Yeah. He like cussed them out. He was like, "Yo, I'm out."
Too tired.
that was probably my favorite part. When he jumps out the window and they're like, "General Grievous is away."
I love that you use General Grievous as like a verb.
Yeah. It's an action word, bro. We've all done it. But then they take the train, like we had said, it was the Pike Syndicate, and Boba kind of strikes a deal with them. Do you guys think that is enough? Again, we have so many crime families and there so many beats that are like seem that they're super intentional, but might, like, as minuscule as they be, do we think that him saying like, "Yo, you're under the protection of me now, like go on as you please," like, do you think that in the the coming episodes that might be an alliance that will like benefit him? Because like it does seem that the walls are closing in on his reign as a crime lord on Tatooine, because everybody's kind of like coming for that seat or just want him out of it.
Two ways I see this going down, right? The Pikes reluctantly took protection from the Raiders to leave per Boba's request. I could see them retaliating as a response. Mm-hmm. Or maybe in that current timeline, we see a better relationship between Boba and the Pikes as someone who comes in to reinforce during that maybe 5 armies battle that you feel we might be building up to.
It's coming. It's on the way.
But for Boba to leave the Raiders, I feel like something traumatic might need to happen. And I kind of feel like that's where it's going.
I'm kind of halfway in agreement with that second point. Like, I do think that, like, mostly because in the other stuff we've seen of the Pikes, at least that I've only seen like 1 or 2 other things. They're not exactly an aggressive gang. Like they're like craven little drug dealers that don't really have a lot of backbone. So as soon as, they're shown like, hey, don't do this again, don't attack the Tuscans, and we'll be fine, we're going to protect you and your people as you go through here, I kind of feel like they're going to be like, oh, okay, cool, we just don't have to attack the Tuscans. I'm just fine, I won't do that. And I kind of feel like that there will be like a more beneficial relationship building up. Push comes to shove, I think if there's any backlash, it won't be the Pikes doing it directly. It's the Pikes told the Hutts. They're just like, by the way, this guy's taken over Bib Fortuna, who took over Jabba's place. So like, do something about it.
Yeah, and that could, again, because we don't know how far these flashbacks are, that could be the thing that kind of like got the twins up off, like about this, about the seat. Like, oh wait, what? That seat's open? Like, we just been incested this whole time. We didn't know a lot.
I do kind of like the idea that like the OG crime syndicates have like an honor among thieves, and they're like, we're not letting anybody else. Like Crimson Dawn they rose to power. We saw this happen a few years ago. We're not letting it happen again. So it would be interesting to see that for sure. You can't trust any of them, and I think that's what kind of makes it so exciting, is that literally you don't know. I mean, we were talking about Fennec potentially not being an ally later in the series, and now I feel like it's too far off for me.
I don't
know.
It
could come back.
There's some looks she gave him when some of the stuff was happening that I was kind of like, it feels like she's like slowly building this meter of like, I'm getting real tired of your shit, Boba.
I mean, she does press the Rancor pit button, so who's really in charge?
Yeah, she's like, just gonna hit this. No, but Mike, you make a good point. I think that's what I'm really digging about this show. It's like it's not even like you don't know who to trust. It's no one is trustworthy in this show. Yeah. So it's just like everybody has ulterior motives, so it really could go either way. Because I'm kind of with you guys with the Pike Syndicate. I could go either way. That, like I said, they might show up for this Battle of Five Armies in the current timeline to like help out, or they could be the ones that snitched and be like, "Hey, go get this Boba guy."
It could also be both.
Very true. Absolutely.
That's the thing. Like, I think the best answer is, and I hate to use this as a reference from The Big Lebowski, if you want to know who's really doing the pulling the strings, look for who benefits most. And I think that's just the best calculation, is who's going to benefit most from whatever decisions being made. Because like Boba taking over for Bib Fortuna is definitely not really benefiting anyone other than Boba. And probably like the Tuscan and the relatively regular people of Mos Espa and Tatooine on the whole, but like none of the other crime syndicates are going to benefit from it. There was probably tons of agreements they had with Bib Fortuna already, because he was, skeezy at heart and probably just liked money. So, but like Boba is a completely different beast, and change is scary anyway. When Bib Fortuna took over, it was probably like, oh, so like less scary Jabba, we can handle that.
Right. Yeah, we're used to him. We've seen him around. He just gained some weight. That's all. Yeah. But yeah, no, I'm here for all of this. But after we kind of get the send off for the Pike in single file, as instructed by Boba Fett, walk in single file, take these water chestnuts, have yourself a ball. We get the Ayahuasca journey, which we thought was gonna be kind of stretched out, and they just said no. We have so much things that we want to accomplish here. We get some crack cocaine powder blown in Boba's face, and he rides
lizard nip.
Yeah, and then he rides the toad, or the lizard in this case, and we get flashbacks of something that a lot of people don't ever remember, or isn't really brought up, which I think is always a cool fact, is that Tatooine used to be a water planet until it all dried up somehow. And I blame Anakin. He hates sand. He's like, we'll give you sand, chosen one. But we get like this really cool, I don't think that I've ever really seen any type of like, we've seen like forced dreams that are kind of just like scenes in a movie with bubble effects around it, but I don't think we've ever gotten like this type of hallucinogenic type of like blending, and like Camino turns into Tatooine, and like flashbacks, and this tree, this Jesus tree that is somewhere in on Tatooine. But what did you guys think about Boba's spiritual crack cocaine journey, his LSD trip?
My nostrils are crawling right now.
Look, that's why they gave him crack, because it opened up the nostrils so the lizard
they just told the lizard where to go.
But Mike, how did you feel about just that whole that whole scene?
The imagery really worked for me. I loved that, like, there was a specific shot that when Boba cracks the branch off, you can't tell if it's sand or a wave crashing. And then it does appear to be a wave the closer you take a look at it. But I also want to mention two suns. It might drive a planet.
Very true.
But I did kind of love that, like the tribal nature of the Tuscan Raiders is exemplified like in this series specifically. I feel like it kind of gave me a Native American Vision Quest type vibe, and I really appreciated that sort of reference. And there were a few other tribal things that I picked up on as the episode progressed, but I really enjoyed it. I kind of loved that it had him crossing back and forth between his current state and in the like OG Boba Fett suit, and then we saw a little bit of Daniel Logan's Boba Fett in there as well. It's just nice to see like these flashbacks, almost like it was in this journey. Boba was getting bits and pieces of everything that has made him who he is, and the branch kind of signifies who he's going to become, right?
Love it. Joe, how'd you feel about it?
I was getting real heavy like Norse mythology vibes too, because that tree itself was like a very not Jormungandr,
Odin's tree.
Very tree of life kind of thing, which is symbology in a lot of mythological, religious, spiritual beliefs. Is like the tree is the core of life kind of concept. So I really dug that they kind of leaned into that. And I just want to point out that like Tuscan society seems better and better. Their drugs are also their pets. That just seems awesome. Come on, Sparky, let's get high.
Multitasking at his best.
Yeah,
he's you know what to do.
when you got to be this like desert dwelling nomad, when you're a species of people that was not accustomed to the planet you were born on originally, and this is what it is now. Yeah, is 100% probably what had happened. Is they just learned to adapt, and everything is like has like 4 uses. I'm pretty sure those their weapons, I can't remember what they're called.
The gaffies.
Gaffy stick.
Probably have like 4 other uses we haven't even seen yet. It's probably like an eating utensil too.
They definitely are stirring stew with those sticks.
Yeah, totally.
1000%. But I love a point that you guys brought up about like it giving like just the culture of the Tuscans is giving off like Native American vibes. Cause it's like, I don't know if this happened just like, well, it did happen organically, but I don't know if this was like intentional or just, like just Star Wars fans being Star Wars fans, but they've kind of made the term like sand people like a derogatory term for Tuscans. And it's just like, whoa. Like, we don't call them that anymore. And it's just like, I kind of think that just kind of like happened without anyone like having to like explicitly say like, oh yeah, like, it was in it, because they're fictional characters, but it's just like, let's not offend.
Yeah.
let's be kind. Let's not offend. So Boba does break his branch off and walks back. Can you imagine, like, for as awesome as that trip was, like the sober walk back with a tree trunk?
He was not sober.
You're right. He was just kind of stumbling through the desert.
A lasting high, if you will.
I mean, the thing was still in his head.
Very true. Yeah. So all right, I'll pivot a bit. Can you imagine, as soon as you come down for your high, you get put to work? They was just like, yo, you about to get your own gaffi steak, but you gotta make it.
That just sounds like capitalism.
Yep.
Tell him, Joe.
I'd like to make a quick point about the ritual of forging a gaffi stick. Is there's something really interesting parallel wise that I've noticed. So the trip that Boba's gone through has seen him go from like, soulless, cold-hearted bounty hunter to like what we can only gather as like an actual like leadership role with like some heart behind it. He still has no qualms about killing a bitch, but in general, he is like less about like, I'm gonna kill you because you mouthed off, and more like, I'm gonna kill you because you tried to kill me. And I think part of it is this really nice parallel, and I hate to bring them up, but there's like a little Jedi vibe going on here, because like one of the final tasks for a Jedi is to build their own lightsaber, and that is kind of what he did here. Is he was trained to build his own gaffi stick, and Jedi have to go find a crystal to build their own lightsaber. He had to go find the wood to build his own gaffi stick. So I just think it's very interesting. And then his teacher his stick was designed a lot like his teacher's, with the head, the point having the same carving style. So I think there's a lot of that kind of like, this was his Jedi master and he has been the Padawan, and now he is becoming a Jedi Knight of his own volition and his own level. It's different 100%, but I think it kind of shows how, like, and again, we have had so little Force, and I'm very happy about that. But I think this is the vibe that Star Wars needs to lean into with the Force, that the Force is like within all of us, and it binds everything together and it ties everything together. So when you start seeing parallels pop up in situations that there should be absolutely no parallels, that's like kind of the subtle influence of the Force kind of thing.
Yeah, the through thread. I mean, as bad as the movie was, The Last Jedi did try to do that. Like, hey, like the Force is everywhere. Anybody can be Force sensitive. It's all over the place. And then they said, nope, we're retconning all of that shit.
The Last Jedi, or
the movie, The Last Jedi.
yeah, I
The
love the
second.
Last Jedi.
Yeah, I was out of the three. Is that in order? I like them literally in order, like Force Awakens, Last Jedi, Rise of Skywalker. But I'm saying, just like the tone of that movie was like, with the kid who like did the Force pull with the broom, was it like, the Force is everywhere surround us, which was like kind of like the original things before we did like the midichlorian pivot and all that fun stuff. And people are very divided on science versus magic and all that
They
fun
could have
stuff.
still used midichlorians and it not been crappy, and I'll tell you
No,
how
I agree.
later.
I agree.
I do love your point though, Joe. Like my girlfriend actually said the same thing, that it reminded her of like the Gathering, where the Jedi go to get their crystals, and I agree with you. Like, keep the Force as far away from this show as possible, but it rhymes, right? Classic George Lucas. Like, they are taking beats from elsewhere, but it makes sense, and I appreciate that kind of storytelling too, because it's nice to see the connections in universe and outside, right?
And it's not so much that I want the Force to stay far away, but I don't want like Force wizards showing up. Like, I like this kind of influence of something like the Force, where you just see it happening. No one's making it happen. It just happens.
It's the will of the Force, right? Like, it's just it's a part of the universe. I love the Jedi more than anybody, I think, but
we need a break.
Yeah.
I'm with you. We all Jedi'd out. But yeah, no, this whole episode, it was very parallel to like Anakin's journey with it was like inversed a lot, but like Boba witnessing like a medium massacre of people that he loved and going and exacting revenge, like when Anakin like slaying the Tuscans, like Tuscans got killed, Boba went and killed the Taggers and everything, and then like the carrying of the family figure in the robes to the fire, and then like you guys were saying, like with the training and the building like your own thing. I'm right with you guys. Like, it's Star Wars at the end of the day. Jedi's reign supreme and all that stuff.
Balance, because
there you go.
Tatooine had a savior show up. It was born, or a chosen one born, and then that chosen one slaughtered Tuscan and became the worst thing in the galaxy. And then you have this guy who's one of the worst things in the galaxy crash land and become someone who helps save the Tuscan.
Absolutely. And that kind of leads us to the final question. So two of the things that we thought were going to be dragged out have kind of just been given to us in the first two episodes, which I'm not mad about, because they are smaller episodes, that being with like the flashbacks, and we said like Boba's spiritual journey and how he went from who he was to who he is now. So I know we're only two episodes in, and I'm gonna ask this every episode because it seems like they're kind of like keeping us on our toes. Now that we know that Boba's coming to God isn't really like the overarching or underarching at this point theme of the show, what do we think is like the climax, or where do we think this is heading to? Joe, if you want to go first.
That we find out Boba's like trying to make life better for the Tuscans. He's trying to be a crime lord to take over, to be like, all right, so like I'm still gonna let these people live on Tatooine, but you gotta stop just hunting Tuscans.
No, I'm rolling. That's what I think is gonna happen as well. That his whole motive of taking over for like the syndicate, well, not the syndicate, for this crime family is, so I don't know if he's necessarily gonna go as far as to like bring the Tuscans like into the city and everything. That'd probably be a lot.
I think it's the idea of, and I hate to keep using like real world imagery here, to give them back land, basically,
Yeah.
to like designate a chunk of Tatooine. Like, you people can't go here and build more moisture evaporators and that kind of crap.
Yeah, and
As
it'd
Boba
be a
said,
safe bet.
they know every grain of the Dune Sea, right? So it's
Exactly. That whole speech, like, yo, y'all colonized here, or y'all came here first. Like, this land, I mean, this is your homeland. Like, you shouldn't be hunted. Like, you should just be able to like do what you want to do. And again, whether it was intentional or very Kevin Feige backed into it, but this worked out. Like, even with like the sequel trilogy, we never really go back to Tatooine except for like that last scene with Rey in the last movie. So the Tuscans could be benefiting what Boba set up for them, even though it's like 25 years later. But we spent a lot of time on Jakku and like other planets and whatnot. So it could be like a total different like system that he kind of implemented because we weren't there to see it. But Mike, what do you feel is gonna be where do you see this show going in the next 4 episodes? 4 episodes, 5? It's 6 altogether, right?
7.
7 episodes? Yeah, so what do you see us going from here?
So I do think that the Tuscan timeline, I guess, is gonna eventually wrap itself up and not play into it, because there's a part of me that really feels that a lot of this is Boba finding his new identity and reclaiming some of what made him him, but forging like a new path at the same time. I wouldn't be surprised if we see him save Fennec like we did, like have it match up with Mandalorian beats, because they're going to be so closely tied together. Have him go to Mos Pelgo and talk to Cobb Vanth about, where his armor is. Maybe do a flashback adventure with him to help. He knows that like Cobb Vanth was friendly with the Tuscan Raiders if he shows up after the Crate Dragon.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that for me, the Tuscan Raider motif, if it doesn't end up paying off in that like huge overarching thing that they've pushed Tatooine to this place where the Tuscans have been able to reclaim their planet, would be really cool. I personally just think that it's more centralized to Boba Fett finding his new path for himself.
And I don't necessarily think it's going to be a situation where we're going to see that happen. I just think that's his motivation, if that makes sense.
Yeah, like, so it's implied.
Yeah.
I think that would work. Just making Tatooine a better place for all the time it's been just scum and villainy would be a nice change of pace, right?
Yeah.
Right. Where's Watto and Sebulba at? They just like, I don't want this to work out.
Sebulba said, I'm going to pod race elsewhere.
He's like, we getting along now? Ew. I hate this planet. But that actually, you made me just reminded me, like the whole Cad Bane Crate Dragon Boba's armor episode. Where would he have been at? Like, because Boba definitely wasn't with them when that happened. Oh, Joe got that look in his eye.
So I think maybe what probably, if granted, this is like me just like piecing it together to explain it to myself. There was tons of tribes, some tribes more violent than others. I'm pretty sure the tribe that helped Cobb Vanth and Den take down the Crate Dragon was not the tribe Boba's been with.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean the other tribes don't talk to each other. So chances are very good that like those Tuscans were like, yeah, this dude and these two guys in these armors that looked like this, that did these things, a rocket on its back and all this other stuff, eventually telephoned all its way back to Boba, and he's like, I'm sorry, they were what now?
Gotta go.
I'm just imagining this conversation being like and then like they're just gonna have to do like a symbol of someone holding up the like pearl from the Crate Dragon.
Yeah,
exactly. But Mike, you did touch on something that I wouldn't, even though it does seem to like, I wouldn't say, I'm not at the point yet where I'm like, all right, that's enough flashbacks. But you kind of touched on, I would like to see like how him and Fennec's relationship kind of got to where it was, because we know like he saved her, and then when they pop back up again, they were tag team partners. But there's kind of like a missing gap, and I don't need like a whole episode, but that could be a good way to play if there is like an episode where they start to like dissension in the ranks. That would be like a good time to play that flashback. Like, oh, yo, like we was the homies. Like, why are you turning against me now?
Sometimes fate intervenes to save the wretched. There's like been a point to it, like in marketing, in the like, you know how Disney likes to plant their seeds in the like not flashback, but the, I guess, previously on the Book of Boba Fett. Yeah.
Or even if they're not planting the scene, the idea of like, well, we had this scene, let's just run with it.
Yeah. No, and I feel like that's especially with these Star Wars shows and a lot of with the Marvel shows. I feel like obviously, a lot of these things are done like way before they come out. But I think like whether it's like the screeners or the testers, that's a lot of their logic. Like, oh, that worked, that worked differently than what I thought it was gonna work. So let's run with it. Like, let's just go with it. And
there's another angle, like maybe the whole Finnick is trying to fake us out too, kind of thing, like the viewer out, where she's trying to make the other criminal lords think that she's getting tired of Boba's shit, so they can come to her and think she could just be like, nah.
I love that, because like Fennec was also responsible for the audience who is like familiar with Star Wars was very in on that Rancor bit. This kind of feels like it flips that coin on its head. To have that kind of story beat. I would love to see something like that.
It's like that the scene in Indiana Jones in the Crystal Skull. He's like, you're a double, triple agent. It's like how's that even work? But that was everything from episode 2. We got through a lot. I love doing this with you guys. Like I said, we got 4 more episodes, and I can only imagine that a lot more shit's about to go down, because it seems like they are content with packing these episodes with a lot, which I'm here for, because we do tend to get in with those like the 10 episode shows. We usually always get like a filler in there, and I think Joe, you said it like episode 1, like 7 episodes is kind of like a perfect amount. 7 to 8 is like a perfect amount, because it's every episode means something. And like you were saying, Mike, earlier, it's just like there's so much stuff that I feel like was like a wink and a nod that I might have even missed that will make you like go back and watch. And all the stuff with like the comic lore that they're making canon, but they're like doing it without saying it. It's just like, if you know, like with Black Cartanius and Scar, like we always say, like the dent with Cad Bane, the Cad Bane dent and Bulma's help and everything. So I'm super excited. I'm on time again. Look at that. 2 weeks in a row. I didn't take us over. Just getting it done. But we have been Fandom Spotlight. Before we do our outros, I will love for my council to let you guys know where they can find you, what they got going on. Mike, tell the people what you got going on, good brother.
You can find me right here next week on Fandom Spotlight, talking more Book of Boba Fett, and follow my Instagram at Mikey_the illest for some Star Wars art and other goodies in there. So definitely check that out, and I'll pass it over to you, Joe.
You can find me on various locations, primarily Twitter, where I'm at the Spice Must Joe. You can also find me, of course, on LinkedIn, because I have to plug my LinkedIn every week, otherwise I get
every time
mocked viciously. But you can find me occasionally when I'm not dealing with crippling anxiety, writing for Fandom Spotlight. And I think that's about it. Yeah, that sounds right.
But I've done so many of these with you. I know when you miss something. So you got
I think I got it all.
Now you got them all. And I have been your Jedi Master of Ceremonies. As always, you can find me on Matthew Porter on Facebook, _menace2 sobriety on Instagram. You can find me here doing these with a couple of my favorite nerf herders each week. Marvel, Star Wars, The Range, we do it all. You could also find me on the Ether podcast. That's the Elephant in the Room podcast. Logo done by Mr. Mike Campbell himself. That is EITHER. The I is silent. We didn't spell it wrong. And we got some cooking things for you coming up with Dragon Ball for Life. But we won't tell you too much, but it's on the way. But if you ever get lost on a crack trip with a lizard in your nose and you need to find your way back to your Tuscan village, always remember to follow that fandom. And we are out. And I never know what to do with my hands.